Hi, good morning. This is a little lesson and demonstration on how to critique artwork for our Art Society Ceramics Wheel Thrown 1 class. And our final project that we hand in with 10% of your mark is your final critique. You're going to discuss 4 pieces of artwork that you created, or some of these were virtually created. Because we didn't finish our semester in studio, we finished our semester virtually. And so you may have any combination of actual pottery, photographs of pottery, hand-drawn pottery. You could also have a photograph cut and pasted of a professional artist's work, or you could have, for up to one piece, either a photograph or an actual piece of pottery of a professional artist's work. So I'm going to do my sample demonstration critique using a variety of those different examples of pottery in different states. I've got with me my inventory sheet. I just made a sample inventory sheet with just the pieces I'm going to do on my critique to make it easier to follow along when I'm doing my critique. I'm not actually going to hand that in, it's just a sample. And then I also wanted to show you this handout. This is a really useful handout, mostly to use to prepare for your critique, but also you could have it with you while you're doing your critique. Okay, so I'm going to start now. Hi, welcome to my critique. Here's the first piece of pottery I made. This is pot number 1. It's made out of reclaimed clay. It's a pinch pot, and it used 3/4 of a pound of clay. It's 2 inches high and 3 inches wide. It's got some decoration before bisque of stamping. I used the end of a pencil to create this sort of starburst or flower pattern, as well as some repeated little lines there, and they're on the rim and on the side. I glazed it in enchanted green glaze, and I fired it in oxidation. My analysis is that it uses the element of texture to create the principle of repetition. So that's really easy to see with the texture and the repetition. My interpretation or meaning on this piece is it makes me think of nature and spring. And so that's a good positive feeling of rebirth and life for me that makes me feel good. And my judgment or my strengths and weaknesses, I think the weakness on this piece is that the bottom's a little rough. I could have spent a little bit more time making it a bit smoother. But overall, for my first piece, it has nice even wall thickness, so it's pretty good. The second piece that I'm going to discuss today is my pitcher. And so here's a picture of my pitcher, which was left in the greenware state. I didn't get to trim it or add the handle or the spout or finish it, but I'm going to discuss it as if I had. So it's 4 inches tall by 4 inches wide, and it used 1.5 pounds of clay. It has no decoration before bisque, and I glazed it in, or I would have glazed it in dark blue. I fired it in oxidation. It uses the element of color because it's such a bright blue color, and the principle of unity because it's just one color throughout. And my interpretation or meaning for this piece is that it makes me think of my grandma's house. It makes me think of family gatherings, because like a gravy boat or a pitcher would have been shared at family meals. So it gives a really sort of positive, homey, nice feeling, happy feeling. And my judgment, the weakness is that it wasn't really a well-thrown piece. It was a little, lopsided. I wish that it was taller, for example. But the strength is that when I finished it, I know that when I trim and when I add a handle and I glaze it, it's actually going to look really good. So that's the strength there is that I learned that when you carry a piece through to the end, it actually turns out really nicely. The next piece I'm going to show was my pot number 11, and this is actually the sketch that I created for my throwing list. So I was going to make this on last wet clay day, but we weren't there. So I'm just using the drawing, my idea, and that's a mug, and it uses 1.5 pounds of clay. It was about, say, 5 inches tall, and diameter is about 2.5 inches wide. Has no decoration before bisque, and it's glazed in Sam's white, fired in oxidation. So for analysis, the element and principle, the element is value, because value means lightness or darkness, and so it has a really light value. It's really strongly white. I glazed it all white. And the principle is economy of design. So this is just simple. It's all white. My interpretation was that I intended it to be elegant and simple. But my judgment, my weakness is that making it all white was actually a little plain for me. So I wanted to try it. I'm glad I did. But now that I see it, it's a little plain. I would have liked to have a little bit more decoration. But the strength is the shape. I really like the way that the form came out. And finally, for my last piece I'm going to discuss in my critique, this is my pot number 12. And so for this piece, I'm actually going to critique another artist's work because I didn't have the opportunity to create all 12 pieces of pottery this term because of the way of finishing up, that we weren't in studio. So for one of my pieces of my critique, I'm actually going to discuss this mug made by an artist named Dave Dunk. And it was 1.5 pounds about of clay, I'm going to guess. I'm going to say it was reclaimed clay. And this piece wasn't actually even wheel thrown. This was formed almost like a pinch pot where the clay is formed, and you can see that the clay was allowed to crack as he worked on it, allowing it, as it stretched, he allowed the cracks to come through. And then his decoration before bisque, he added these little coils in to make this texture. And the glazing, this is Pankoli Tomoku on the inside rim and handle, and then the color here is a red iron oxide wash. And so he's taken red iron oxide and rubbed it into all the little cracks, but rubbed it off the surface. And that's an amazing decorating technique to show the texture. Fired in reduction. And the element and principle here, we've got line created by all these little cracks and details, and context. And so these little lines create the context, or the interpretation for this piece is sort of like hidden messages, and also like the decoration is abstract, but when you look at it, you can use your imagination to see things, like maybe they kind of look like eyes, or this part over here kind of looks like an owl, or maybe a bird or a bug. So my interpretation on this one is that there's sort of hidden beauty everywhere, and allow things to take their shape as they go, and use your imagination. For strengths and weaknesses, on this one, I think the weakness is that the handle here it's a little flattened. I'd like to see a little bit more lift and a smoother sweep there. But overall, the strength is just beautiful. It's a really nicely made mug. It feels wonderful in the hand. It holds a nice amount. And the other thing that I love about it is it makes me think of the artist. And so it's lovely. Okay, so that's my final critique. Overall, you could do an overall at the end and just say, I'm happy with the work that I made, or I could see my progress through this semester, and I learned lots of good techniques. Thanks for watching.